Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I'm going live about now. Welcome to a new episode with Mark Tech. I apologize. The stream where I check out how my live stream works had some ads. So yeah, this is almost a public service announcement. I've done one obviously when Apple promised that iOS 17.03 or an update, as they just called it, would soon come out to hit overheating issues on the latest iPhones. This update is now live. Alongside other topics today, I would like to talk about just also how the A17 Pro now performs while on iOS 17.03, and I've reacted live to the Google Made by Google event, I believe as it was called, basically where they introduced the Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro. And of course, just an hour ago or so, we got news that there might be like an iPad mini still this year. And as you know, I'm really interested in iPads in general. So I'm gonna go through that news as well. Now, what's important here is that 17.03 seems to be a pretty significant update for a 0 point release. It is coming out not just to iPhones, it's also coming out to iPad users. So it does not seem to be limited functionality-wise just to the fix of basically overheating. It's the build 21A360, so check out if you obviously can download it. I am already on iOS 17.1 beta 2 that launched about a day before this launched, so we don't yet fully know if iOS 17.1 has the corresponding fixes, the same ones as are in iOS 17.03. So if your phone really suffered from overheating and you're already on a beta, please let me know if this fixes or improves anything for you. I know it can be like fickle to really see. Sometimes it's just like apps, right? Instagram was supposed to be like the main culprit for so many people of overheating or just getting warm issues, as Apple put it. So that will be interesting. There are also some security fixes inside the release. Both iOS 17.03 and iPadOS 17.03 feature a kernel vulnerability fix that supposedly already was exploited by people in iOS 16.6, so it seems to have followed from iOS 16 to iOS 17 in general, but now in 17.03 it's addressed. So regardless of if you feel like your phone is overheating or not, 17.03 definitely seems to be worth installing. And once again, people were talking about Apple would have to lower processor performance, right? The entire cooling system because of titanium is worse. By the way, I never understood that argument. Stainless steel is really bad for heat dissipation. It's not aluminum, it's not copper, it's not even silver, and titanium is ever so slightly better from what I understand than stainless steel. Now, it's marginal. They are both trash in comparison, again, to aluminum, copper, silver. But I never understood why people believe that titanium, especially now with this new process where Apple basically merges it with the aluminum partially inside the phone, that it was somehow now the culprit. No. From all accounts, the iPhone 15 Pros have probably slightly better heat dissipation than the iPhone 14 Pros. It seems like the A17 chip has higher peak power consumption than the A16, but that is not something you're gonna encounter a lot. JVXSL asking me if I've gotten the 15 yet. I don't know if you can tell through this, but yeah, I got my 15 Pro. I think I also got a lot of subs really fast. Yeah, like basically ever since the Linus Tech Tips drama, I've been like hovering on like this like decent sub gain number, and then someday it just exploded, right? Like I've had a couple of videos that had like some breakout successes, I guess you could call it that, given the size of my channel, right? Like my video where I actually addressed the overheating issue had like 2,000 views the live stream, and then the video where I covered the promise of Apple fixing this issue came with 10,000 views now. So I'm incredibly humbled by the support. I addressed it in every prior stream. This is the first stream where I did not start by sucking up to you guys for joining this community. But I really also wanted, of course, to keep up the good work and let you know, like, I've frightened you all with the overheating talk and potential issues of iOS 7, of the A17 Pro chip. I've given you some hope once Apple announced that they would be fixing overheating, and now I'm basically bringing you salvation by showing you that the A17 Pro performance seems not to be affected after installing the new iOS 17.03 update. I will not be going through any long videos about that subject. You can also check out MaxTech's video that they put out today, and it seems like the iPhone 15 Pro seems to be performing really well. I don't think it ever performed really poorly, and honestly, if you probably had a device that was just like a clean install, you did not put Instagram or anything, I don't think you will necessarily see big improvements. But yeah, for anybody who was frightened, to anybody who was really worried, we got some benchmarks basically here. I don't know what exactly they tested, right? I can only tell you that on 17.1 beta 2 I've done some benchmarks like 3D Mark and Geekbench, and they've all been basically the same peak speeds as before. It seems to be reaching those peak speeds better now. Like, it seems like the phone might not be heating up as much, but then again, you can never know. The weather outside got a little cooler since I originally did those tests, so maybe that could be partially to blame. I would also like to point out once again, this was not just an iOS 17 operating system issue. It also came along with issues in apps like Instagram, Uber, and Asphalt 9. I kind of am inclined to believe that maybe there are actually way more apps than that. It's just those are some of the most popular ones. So that would be quite interesting. JamXL, you should start doing like normal professional videos. You have enough subs, you would get a lot of subs. Yeah, you mean like pre-recorded videos? Well, yeah, it's just I enjoy doing the live streams. I enjoy interacting with you guys. I enjoy getting like the occasional like super chat and stuff like that, of course. But yeah, I'll do in the future more regular videos. But I kind of like the look, right, in general, where I don't think that I would do like super highly edited videos. I think I would do more videos that are like basically, you know, like me still sitting down here, but I have my text prepared. Maybe I've put something very deliberate as the background on my Mac and something like that. And then I basically do what I do here, but without any distractions, without any potential problems, any hiccups and stuff like that. So yeah, I can definitely imagine adding a lot of that type of content to the channel. Now this is Geekbench. According to the results, Apple's flagship obtained a single-core score of 2875 and a multi-core score of 7006. After waiting a while to let the A17 Pro and 15 Pro Max cool down, the test was run again, and now it secured 2941. That seems to be about the peak Like I've seen some like results of 2950 or something like that, and yeah, 7500 seems to actually be universally like a little higher than what we saw prior to 17.03, where I've seen a lot of like results that basically max out at around 7300, maybe 7400. So 7500 seems to be like ever so slightly better. Again, it's not something you will actually see. I highly doubt that Apple will start giving you way more performance to the rest of the for the system, but overall I think it's just a positive thing to see that it definitely did not came with any kind of downclocking, any kind of issues like that. Basically, it seems to all be working quite well. And again, I cannot speak for other testers, but I can tell you myself that I have not experienced any bad issues during my iPhone 15 Pro usage, but it seems to be ever so slightly better both in battery life and benchmark performance on 17.1 beta 2. Whether or not that means maybe nothing and 17.1 beta 2 just maybe fixed some garbage that was in the OS, and it might not even come with that bug fix. But if you are somebody who has had any issues, please install 17.03. That definitely will work out well for you. So I'm really happy to report all that. I also wanted to briefly apologize that my video quality is a little worse than usual. Usually I do those videos with my iPhone connected to my Mac, but I lost like my little MagSafe mount from Belkin. I will order a new one, or I'll go to the store tomorrow and see if they have one here. But yeah, I'm aware that quality is not quite up to my usual standards in that regard. However, the stream actually seems to be working quite fine, which I'm always worried about, as you guys know. So yeah, this was the first issue there I wanted to cover. Again, nothing huge here, but I do believe it's definitely worth analyzing for all of us. Next is the Google Pixel. Now this is, I'm trying to cover this from a variety of perspectives, right? I know it's like, it's iffy, right, how much people are actually interested in. There is definitely also some negative stuff that I want to address with the Pixels. I'm interested in them probably more than I've been in prior years. I think the amount of software that Google has basically loaded onto these phones is now starting to pay off. Right, which by that I want to say that the amount of assistant features, and I mean they're saying like the word AI 100 times during the event. It should mean something, and this is the first year where I'm actually somewhat interested in what the final result is. In prior years, I was always like, oh, okay, this one feature will come to Google Photos anyway, and then I never end up using it. So in the end, I'm kind of confirming to myself, yeah, it wasn't that big of a deal anyway. But this year there's a bunch of stuff coming. I'm interested because a lot of it will not be coming day one, so I'm definitely likely not getting the phone anyway. But hey, if somebody here lives in Germany and wants to send me the phone or something like that, I'll test it and I'll send it to you. And hell, if you want to, I can share the revenue for the video that will be the result of that. So, and now this is reporting from Mac Rumors. I think that's actually an interesting perspective for us to cover, because Mac Rumors is obviously an Apple-centric website, so I think they will do quite a nice job in outlining maybe how an Apple user will feel about it. I want to say that this year I'm specifically really interested in the Pixel 8. Like, sure, I personally might prefer the Pro because I like large phones. I like phones phones with the highest possible battery life, with the best possible large display, with the largest possible sensors and the largest variety of camera sensors. There's a lot speaking for the Pixel 8 Pro, but the price difference of like $300 with the same base storage of 128 gigabytes, with both phones supporting 120 hertz, with like most AI features being the same across both phones, I actually kind of dig the Pixel 8. And I think if anybody wants like a small like Android sort of flagship, this might be the best one. Like the Galaxy S23 is obviously not the newest one. I think it will dramatically have dramatically worse cameras, for example. It will probably outperform it though with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, but we'll get to some of the negative stuff. While the Pixel 8 Pro, I actually think, has decent amount of competition, with the iPhone not really getting more expensive in the United States, with it even getting small price drops across like Europe and the United Kingdom. Like, I don't know, like it seems to have a couple of cool features, maybe some stuff that might tempt even Apple users, but overall I just don't think that this will really, like, even as an ecosystem, like those buds will not convince AirPods Pro users, and this watch will not convince Apple Watch users, much less like Apple Watch Ultra users. So yeah, again, interest does not mean I'm actually switching. I'm not one of those YouTubers that will tell you every year like, oh my god, lifelong Apple user is now convinced that Android won thanks to the Pixel or the Samsung. No, I have spoken out repeatedly against that kind of sensationalist coverage, that very misleading coverage. But let's go through the actual device specs and features that are somewhat intriguing to me, right? So the Pixel 8 Pro is the high-end model. It has an LTPO 6.1 inch panel, so it will have similar stuff to the 15 Pro Max. In fact, they're advertising a higher peak brightness than the 15 Pro Max at 2400 nits versus 2000 nits. Now, I'm not sure what the real-world results will actually gonna be like. The cooling systems in the Pixels have never been the best. Everything points to this not having changed that much. So I'm honestly really interested in if this is actually like gonna be a sustainable specification of the Pixel here. However, for the Pixel 8, we have a more humble 6.2 inch display. It's an Actua display in comparison to the Pro's Super Actua display. It's not variable refresh rate, it's an LTPS rather than an LTPO panel, but it still maxes out at 120 Hertz, and it maxes out at 2000 nits, which is again the same brightness as the 15 lineup, because both the Pros and the non-Pros get a peak brightness of 2000 nits. They're built out of polished aluminum, which is interesting because Apple has historically gone for like stainless steel for the polish look. Aluminum is usually matte on Apple's devices, so that is an interesting look to be had here. And on the regular Pixel 8, the non-Pro, basically it is satin. Both phones have very nice, supposedly feeling satin back finishes. Google has been kind of known to experiment with like glass coverings, I guess you could say, that feel really nice. Historically, people were like, oh, it actually feels more like, you know, like really premium plastic rather than glass. So I'm curious to see, like, this just looks like really nice, like a satin finish, though. It does not harbor back to like their experiments during the Pixel 4 era or something like that. So they are the more traditional glass and aluminum sandwich design. They do have one front-facing like camera as a cutout in the center. Neither has like extremely slim bezels by modern standards, but they do definitely look acceptable. And they're using Gorilla Glass Victus or Gorilla Glass Victus 2 for protection. They both use the Tensor G3, with the main focus of the Tensor G3 is of course AI stuff, so that Google can run their machine learning algorithms on it, which is used for all types of assistant features. It can filter out spam calls, improve image processing, and of course there's all the image stuff with erase background noise from videos and stuff like the magic eraser and magic editor, and of course all kinds of device features, even like boost call quality. This is something that even Apple has also like outlined this year, so it seems to be like machine learning algorithms have like become really good at like filtering out noises. Google has specifically talked about higher quality. I wonder if that only applies for like voice calls basically over the internet, or like regular calls, because regular calls are like severely bandwidth limited. So I wonder if there's like any real value of sending higher quality audio over that. Anybody who like does like traditional calls will know that those are not like the nicest feeling, nicest to listen to things ever. According to Google, there's also a tightened M2 security chip. That's Google has been for years working on a little bit of exclusive stuff for the Pixels. A lot of it was just software in the past. Like, of course, like even with their cameras, of course, they like designed the overall camera, right? The lens system on top and stuff like that. But the sensors are like still stuff they get from either Samsung or Sony. So what they tried to do instead was focus on processors, and it started with something like the Titan security chips, but now moved forward with like the Tensor series of chips of basically like somewhat custom silicon. Now they still use like basically off-the-shelf intellectual property in terms of what cores they use, and I will outline how the Tensor G3 is actually in some ways really similar to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, but it's definitely not the best spec inside the Pixel 8 Pros. Let me just say that. Origin, I know the Tensor chips have always been a big turnoff for me. You preferred powered and hyper-focused on AI. Well, it depends, right? Like sometimes, like I always bring this up because some people find it funny, but like the reason, for example, why the weather animations in newer iOS versions have become exclusive to devices that have the A12 chip or newer, so the iPhone XR, XS, right? Those devices have the A12 chip, and that one has a significantly more powerful neural engine than the one on the A11. The neural engine on the A11 is basically only built for Face ID. It's not really meant for any kind of on-device machine learning in a significant way. But with how much faster the one in the A12 was, Apple started to reprogram a ton of like general computing over to the AI, if that workflow was like obviously suited for a machine learning algorithm. And what they did with like the weather animations, they were like, okay, there are like so many different weathers and stuff like that. We are going to basically make the machine learning chip decide what the concrete animation is going to be that saves us a lot of energy and stuff like that. Okay, right, that's cool. And I think obviously Apple has taken it way farther. There's on machine learning when it comes to dictation and Siri stuff, and obviously machine learning does a lot for the camera and features like subject lift and just in general like object recognition in photos. Just in general, I like a lot of AI stuff. To me, it's just when Google showed like the feature where the phone was like recognizing a call, right? And somebody was like, obviously a spammer was like saying, oh, you want an all expense trip paid for to the Bahamas or something like that, right? And basically the phone said, oh, the owner of this phone cannot respond right now. So they basically like did the double tap on the new Apple Watch to shut them off. However, I just don't trust AI in that way, right? I mean, if something is objectively a spam call, Sure, there might, like, maybe there should be like a database for that. Maybe while you take a call, the phone should tell you, right, that there's high suspicion level for this call. But leaving so much to the phone, like, I understand that, by the way, it's an accessibility feature. If you're in somewhat like speech impaired or movement impaired, I obviously am all for the phone taking as much stress from you as possible. But just this extreme focus on replacing so many human stuff with AI, yeah, I never liked that. It's very Google. They're giving like even interviews right now where they're outlining, oh, we still want people to do a lot of stuff because like AI can obviously not do everything, but it can really augment what people do. And they say that, but I never get with them quite the same feeling as I do with Apple, that they actually believe that. Do you know what I mean? Like, and yeah, of course, if I have to take a choice between like a phone that actually performs really well and will actually game really well and stuff like that, of course I'll choose that over something that just focuses on AI. Like, it's not like Google is unique in AI in that regard. Apple just increased their neural engine processing power by a lot. The Snapdragon chips have been getting better and better at AI. So yeah, I'll definitely take like Apple's approach overall. But hell, I'm glad that there's like a counterpoint to what Apple is doing, right? We don't want a monopoly. We also don't want what I consider somewhat boring takes like Samsung, where it's just like, oh, we have like hardware, but we basically cannot do anything else, right? When has Samsung really been first with a really cool software feature that they actually stuck with? Like, a ton of it was like gimmicks based on extra sensors. Like, they were like, oh, we have iris scanners, then we get rid of them. Oh, we have 3D scanners that like recognize like how you move your hands over the phone, and Google had like something similar and stuff like that, and they all get rid of that stuff eventually. So at least if you just focus on software and don't put in useless crap into the phone to make your stupid features run, like, I definitely prefer like more focus on AI in an SoC rather than wasting space and resources on bullshit like 3D displays that were clearly never gonna work. They definitely should have, by the way, never come to a smartphone while they were as bad as they were. Like holographic projectors that again were so bad they never should have been put into phones in the first gen, right? So yeah, I do prefer Apple's approach, but I do like Google's approach. Origin, you're saying it's the direction we are heading in general. Many companies will follow. Samsung would have just made the same avatar their virtual assistant. They'd gain sales again. Yeah, it's like, I don't know what Samsung is like doing half the time, and honestly, with like with the Sam avatar. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like Samsung's marketing on so many issues has been like so weird in my opinion. They really try to like edge out Apple, right? Meanwhile, they are completely stagnant in sales in a similar way like Apple is almost, but Apple is actually slightly growing and Apple's profits have not fallen like Samsung's off a cliff, right? So they should have really been worried about the likes of Xiaomi, and they were previously worried about Huawei, and then obviously the United States did them a huge favor. Like, look at what happened with Apple, by the way. They gained nothing out of the ban of Huawei. Like, the one company that really profited because they really stood to lose a lot was Samsung. And now it seems like Google might come in and eat a little bit of Samsung's lunch. But let's continue, right? According to Google, the Pixel 8 Pro features better performance in low light and improvements to zoom. Now, it should be said that the zoom, like the 5x, was like really, really bad in low light. If you check out like really comprehensive tests where it like stacks up against the iPhone's 5x camera now, it's really, really bad in comparison. So as much as there might be now a chance that they actually are now better than the 15 Pro Max, we obviously need to see tests like that. Video was really disingenuous with what they talked about. They call this out this boost technology, right? What is interesting though is they really advertise it as like something you basically record on your phone and then you send it to Google's cloud and then it's processed and then it returns to you in higher quality. That to me was like such a mind-bogglingly pointless thing where I'm like, wait, you put in a specific neural engine inside, right? Like, why can I not do the same thing on my phone? Just like I put the phone at night to charge, right? Maybe you create some kind of accessory where it's like cooled really well if it's really needed, and then it does the work. Why the fuck do I need to upload my potentially personal data to you just to get the best video quality? Like, if you have those algorithms, you've repeatedly said that the Tensor G3 is like built to run basically the same machine learning algorithms as your cloud, just obviously much slower. So why do I have to do that? So that was incredibly dishonest. Again, I am really interested. They'll outline that like one camera is like 20% better low light, the other is like 50% better low light. So I'm actually really interested in what that will result in. I think the iPhone 15 Pro has shown to be really much better than the Pixel 7 Pro, and this seems to be like really above the Pixel 7 Pro as well. So it will be interesting to see which one wins out. And there's also now night side video. I'll have to say I'll be obviously like nuanced and I'll try to stay unbiased. Night side video looked weird to me, right? Night side video to me looked like they chose the lowest quality video they could find from a somewhat modern smartphone and sold it to us. Oh, but it can look this way. But what they shown to me was something that I could have captured conceivably on my iPhone 14 Pro, like on my iPhone 13 Pro, like in terms of low light quality. I really didn't understand what was going on. Like they were like saying, oh, but it still looks like night. I'm like, sure, it needs to, but I don't know. It just looked weird to me. Like it looked like I don't know if this feature is like ready. By any means. They've said that some stuff is like launching later. Like let me just Google like night side video, right? Origin unknown. On the video upload thing, either that the server AI is too heavy for the phone or trapped to force people into the ecosystem. Yeah, I think they definitely like like they can leverage a lot of stuff here. They can like say, oh, by the way, like this feature is somehow exclusive to the Pro, right? So this is something I really don't understand. Like, is the idea that you need like a decent enough looking video before you actually upload it? Why can I not see this? What is going on? Do they outline when it's like coming? Yeah, there's like a lot of like pro controls in the Pixel, enhance, whatever. Like, I hate enhanced stuff, to be honest. I hate enhanced stuff for the reason that like when I'm taking those pictures, I'm like, look, it has to be my picture to a degree. If I tap the enhance button and it just turns basically into a landscape picture that I can download from Google. Sorry, Origin. Yeah, I know I turned on a bright website, but who could have known that this would gonna be like completely white and not load at all, right? Yeah, when recording using Video Boost, and I guess this is why going through 9to5 Google is a good thing for me, 2 files are saved onto your device. The first is a standard video that can be instantly shared, and the other is what Google calls a rawish format. By the way, meanwhile, Apple is like coming out with like Dolby HDR, 60 FPS, now log video recording, and Google is like, we have something we call rawish. It's so interesting. The letter is uploaded to Google servers where it will be processed for a few hours. You'll get a notification once the processing is complete. Wait, where's night sight? Okay, low light video capture was greatly improved, much like existing night sight already does for photos, but every daytime videos were considerably better. A key detail that was particularly impressive was the typical light bloom that's common in smartphone videos that contain strong light sources. In the processed video from Pixel 8 Pro, Video Boost was able to fix this completely. Yeah, like uploading, oh my god, like imagine being so like in what world do you get a smartphone where you are so obsessed with the final result that you somehow like would upload it and get it in better quality, but somehow that little bit of light bloom was like really killing your vibe? If you really care about quality where you want the light bloom to go away, just get yourself a real like full frame mirrorless camera. This is so stupid. So the Pixel 8 Pro includes 48 megapixel sensors for both telephoto and ultra wide. Okay, so 50 megapixel main camera has 21% higher light sensitivity. The ultra wide is 105% higher light sensitivity, and the telephoto has 56% higher light sensitivity. So this is basically really positive. This is what I think will keep it on par probably with the 15 Pro Max, probably will allow it to outperform it in certain areas. Again, it's not like they somehow have magical sensors, but I do trust Google's algorithms enough to still believe that they will deliver good quality. It's just that with what they've shown with like night sight video and what they've especially shown with like Video Boost, I just don't know how much I trust them. And they were like so egregious. They shown like Video Boost in comparison to like an iPhone video, and they were like, look how much better this looks. And this was like a video where the iPhone sky was like blown out completely almost. And I'm like, wait, what? Like everything that I know from my 15 Pro Max and my 13 Pro Max prior is that the iPhone has like two blue skies, right? It does not just do a little bit, like it can blow out if you're like switching, right? If you're moving around a lot and you go from an area with like basically like some shadow to then like photographing like the sun almost directly. But I've never seen a video perform the way that what they have shown. And they were like, look how good our video is with Video Boost. It's like, oh my god, that was so dishonest. So what if your video is 2 gigabytes now? You have to use mobile data because most likely you didn't take that video at home and now wait to share. Yeah, I assume they mean like you would probably have a setting to upload it like over Wi-Fi, right? Also, if it's rawish, if it's a long video, it could be way over 2 gigs potentially. Like most people take like relatively short videos on their phones, but like now you have to store on your phone like that original file, right? And that raw-ish video. So I don't know how raw-ish exactly it is, but it definitely seems to be like, questionable, especially with the Pixel 8 Pro still starting with 128 gigabytes. Now 256 gigabytes on the Pixel 8 Pro is still cheaper than 256 gigabyte on the Pro Max, but imagine if you're somebody who's like, oh, I can just rely on a lot of Google storage, and then you get like a 128 gigabyte phone and it's somehow like, and now you have like 48 megapixel, 50 megapixel sensors on basically every camera. You are capturing a lot more raw data. That definitely does not look promising to me. Magic Eraser is now able to run directly on the device, while an impressive new Zoom Enhance feature, reminiscent of moments in science fiction when characters says enhance, like the NCIS stuff where they like have a super blurry picture image from some kind of video surveillance camera and it's like pitch black almost. There are like 4 pixels on the screen. They're like enhance and it gets full HD somehow. But then again, like it's not like this is like has nothing to do with artistry. It does not fundamentally change if your image looks good or not, right? It's like, if you really want to do like landscape photography in that regard, get a real camera. Like, this is where, to me, AI starts to take away a little bit of, like, I have already been, by the way, critical, and you guys know I'm not biased here. I've been repeatedly critical of Apple's photos usually coming out too warm. I know that this is based on how their algorithm performs, and apparently aggregating light this way works really well for Apple, right? But I have said I don't like it, so I take Pro RAW pictures. It takes me almost 20 times the amount of data, but I do that because I'm true to you guys and true to myself, and I've always preferred natural pictures with some kind of natural, like, human-based imperfections. Like, even when I take like pictures for people at parties and stuff like that, I'm usually the one with the best camera phone and something like that. I usually, like, people will like pose, right, and ask like, oh, take like 20 pictures of that, take like 5 with portrait mode this way, and take 5 pictures here, and like from the slight angle. And instead, what people usually end up preferring from me is they usually end up preferring when I take pictures from them in spontaneous moments, like when they have a drink, when they share a laugh, when they play with a pet that ran through the image and stuff like that. And yes, some of those images will look ever so slightly blurry, and some of them will not have the perfect light because obviously they might have been talking in some kind of shadowy corner instead of posing directly under the bright lights. But those are always the more popular pictures, right? It might not be the cover picture of their Facebook story or something like that, but universally they'll come to me and tell me, please keep on capturing pictures like that. And what Google is doing to me just takes a little bit away, like this like head like removal feature where it takes like picture. By the way, this feature is not new. It's it's a feature that even was like on that old like Lumia phones, like, you know, like the 1000 something, right, with the gigantic sensor. It had a feature like that, so that's cool. I don't even know what the feature is called. Did they announce that? Video boost and Pixel brings. Okay, here they talk about video, right? So okay, they have not output Pixel 8 Pro. The reason why shutter lag is a problem, well, yeah, but for example, iOS 17 universally improves quick capture for all iPhones. What iPhones will do now, even older iPhones, is they will like pre-capture pictures before you actually click the shutter, and that will result in pretty nice quality, because it can now choose basically, oh, should it show you the picture that it took basically when you clicked, or should it show you the picture that already existed like a few milliseconds ago, because we already took one. That kind of AI, that kind of like help from the phone, I'm really all on board with, because it helps get me rid of certain complications that just come with, you know, like, it's a relatively small sensor, even like the image stabilizers will not be always perfect, the shutter lag, even though of course it's digital, is still somewhat there as the sensor reads out stuff, right? That I'm all on board with. But when people are like, oh, I can take this face and I can take this face and then I can replace it on you, like, what is it called? Like, is it in the article here? No, they actually don't talk that much about it here, right? Pixel 8, I'll just call it face replacement. Face swap tools, face swap AI feature, yeah. I mean, it's sorry, by the way, for anybody who I blinded again with a bright image here. You see, by the way, like, wait, does that turn on night mode? Why does it not turn on automatically? It's obviously turned on in my settings. Innovation and accountability. So yeah, like, you see how here You can just choose the right face. It does, by the way, feel a tad off, like it's not perfectly merged almost, like, because sometimes you will be a little farther away or just like even a few centimeters closer. It feels like the proportions can be a little wrong, and like the shadows might be a little wrong, right? If you just replace the face, it's not something I can blame Google for. I think overall it's still an impressive thing, but yeah, this is not something I would want to use. Maybe people who really like Instagram pictures of their kids and they like to make everything look perfect, but it's not something. Origin Unknown, how did you prepare for me now for my bright websites? Did you get like those goggles that people put on for solar eclipses, or were you like Trump and doing like this one where you were staring at at the sun that is my video presentation? Yeah, so again, this is cool, but it's, by the way, not as impressive as another feature. That one, I'm actually interested, and I hope that it opens up. Google Magic Editor. Does Google even load? Okay, good. Hide. And again, Google does not apparently have like any kind of like way for me. Wait, Magic Editor in Google Photos? Wait, it was pre-announced? I assumed it was like new for this. I guess well, you have like Magic Eraser already, right, where you can erase stuff from the image. But yeah, so the people here are removed for like Magic Eraser. But now with Magic Editor, you can also change like the sky and stuff like that. So I guess, I don't know if is it so much. Since it's launch remake. Wait, you can do that just in Google Photos? You don't need a Pixel 8 for this? We plan to give select Pixel phones early access. Okay, so it seems like this will launch as like a Pixel exclusive feature right now, but then it will be basically rolling out to all Google Photos users, which again, Google will probably insist on those pictures being like in the cloud for any non-Pixel users, right? And they might not allow you to like use like the neural engine on an iPhone to perform those machine learning tasks. Instead, they will want the picture on their server and then like analyze the picture, obviously for data aggregation for their own purposes, but also to give you, of course, the best result. So that's interesting. Kind of makes me not want the Pixel as much anymore, because this is the feature I'm probably most interested in. I use like subject lift a lot on my iPhone, you know, where you go into a picture, you have like a cat, a person, something like that. You just click on them for a while. It works incredibly fast on the iPhone 15 Pro, by the way. It's so automatic and it's so like mistake free. That's amazing. But here you can do apparently a lot more complex stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if Apple tries to match this to a degree with iOS 18. I don't think they will make this like exclusive to any given phone. But yeah, it's definitely an impressive feature. It's just like, again, it's a lot of fakery for me. That's not how I take images. It's not like I'm fully against it. For like thumbnails, for example, this would actually be perfect if it could like make up shit. Like it's basically generative AI to a degree. But yeah, it's not how I like pictures to look for the most part. Your phone has a version of sky editing where you can change the sky. Sure, you can send me on Twitter. Just flag me and I'll take a look at it. So if you tell me that you have sent it, I'll open up Twitter on my phone here. That would be interesting. So yeah, this is a feature that I was interested in, but apparently it's not fully exclusive. And what are they saying here about it? By the way, guys, I don't want to be obviously too intrusive, but I do want to say that anybody here who wants to support this channel, you can subscribe, you can like, you can share the videos, and if you're somebody who is financially decently off, please consider leaving a super chat or subscribing to me on Patreon. You can find the link to my Patreon in the description of this channel. Again, not trying to basically break your balls in the Cartman South Park way, but I do of course want to encourage you guys to lend me direct support if you can, because direct support is what allows me to keep doing this without considering having to get like a second job while I finish up med school or something like that. So yeah, Google Photos AI-powered Magic Editor featured to ship with Pixel 8 and 8 Pro. Yeah, they're basically like breaking down a lot of the functionality. It's actually interesting. So Magic Editor and Audio Magic Eraser will remove background noise, right? So there's a ton of interesting AI stuff. Will be available on Pixel 8 devices starting October 12th. So it does not seem like it would come to the Pixel 8. That's interesting. Wow. Well, now we're talking a lot about Google differentiating their products based on their chips, right? It's usually something we accuse Apple of. So that's kind of interesting to see, don't you think? That to me kind of really looks like un-Google-esque or un-Android-esque, to be more precise, right? From Android, we kind of expect a lot more like, well, your phone could try to run it. It might not just be very good at it. So that's interesting. Yeah, so again, so the cameras were the highlight, right? There's a ton of other stuff in the devices, right? Like there's a temperature sensor in the Pros for some reason. Maybe Google planned to do some kind of more health features with that, but for now it isn't even like really verified for people. So that's something, right? They both seem to have like decently fast USB-C ports. From first impression, it seems like haptics have really improved, so that's nice. But yeah, the main focus is on the camera, and video they've advertised as being like the best ever on the Pixel, and we'll see how the actual like on-device video without video boost compares to the iPhone. I'm still skeptical, but I will stay as much unbiased as I can. So there is, however, a couple of things that really got to me, right? I've already outlined that I like some of the AI stuff, right? Magic Editor seems to be a good improvement on Magic Eraser, and Magic Eraser was a feature I already admired. Basically, it would not be as useful to me as Subject Lift is currently, but it seems like Magic Editor should be able to replicate Subject Lift pretty reliably, probably better. And then the other point, of course, with all the AI stuff is I like the improvements to audio quality, to potentially like mute certain sounds in a video. So if you have like a dog barking, you could basically blend that out. But the other stuff I really liked, it's because it's very Apple-esque. Now, the promise is not very Apple-esque, right? Apple does not really like to give you a ton of promises. They just like to deliver if they can. But Google is really aggressive with the Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro, promising that both of them, right? So it's not like exclusive to either one, will get 7 years of Android updates. Did you, oh, you sent it to me in a direct message. That's actually really cool. Okay. I don't have to forgive you anything Origin Unknown. By the way, just want to show you some really cool pics. What exactly did you change here? like oh yeah, okay, like I can see, sorry, like I can see it now. I kind of didn't see. So it's like it basically it recognizes, like you guys can take a look at it. Obviously this is not the same as what we are talking about, but Google will have a more advanced version. But basically how I take this is the phone recognized like the sky on top, and then basically replaced it with some other sky, right? The same goes here. It's actually pretty easy in the photo to probably guess where the sky is, right? Because the houses are like forming a pretty clear line, and then on top of that you just put, yeah, it's a nice feature, but again, it's not something how I would probably use a camera, right? I'm pretty naturalist in that way. You know, not in the nudist kind of way, but I do prefer like really natural looks. Like I remember when like my cousin bought like the Galaxy S3, and I had the iPhone 5, right? And I think I told this story before. She's a beautiful young woman. She likes me taking pictures of her because I'm the best one probably in half the city, except for real professionals, because I've been taking pics since I was like 4 years old. And so we went to the park, and I took pictures of her with the iPhone 5. And the iPhone 5, you know, did like that zero shutter lag for the time, where it took like rapid, like I believe it was like 10 pictures per second or something. And that was like awesome. She was like throwing leaves around and was like frozen in the air. For that time, you have to understand, it was really cool on the smartphone. And then we took pictures with a Galaxy S3, and they looked like they were taken in a different universe. Again, completely standard settings, nothing over and under saturated. It just, the grass looked like it was on green fire, basically, you know, like I think magnesium burns green. Not sure about that. Chemistry has been a few years back now, but like that's like, and she was like, look how great the colors look. Now part of that was the oversaturated Super AMOLED screen on the device itself, but overall, like there was no comparison to be had here. Maybe the sharpness was somewhat similar, but yeah, like I just can tell you, this is why I've been critical of Apple for not being supernatural. You know, very natural. I guess supernatural means something different if I say that out quickly. But all phones these days are not super duper natural. And this is why when I can, I take stuff like ProRAW pictures. But let's get to the Apple stuff, which is the Apple-like stuff, which is Pixels are now promising us 7 years of Android updates, which includes security, but also feature drop updates. Now, I don't know if that means that they will get a full 7 year of major OS releases, or maybe they will get like 5 years of Android OS releases, but then like still some feature drops onto older releases. I really cannot say for sure, but again, some stuff will always change. But starting with Tensor and Google Pixel 6, Google began promising 3 years, right? So, but then Samsung leapfrogged them by promising 4 years, which is also, by the way, interesting, because technically here we are talking about 5 years. We're talking about 3 years of Android OS and then 24 months of security patches. So that's like 5 years. The Pixel 8 will get 7 years of Android OS updates that include security patches, as well as quarterly feature drops. Now, the quarterly seems to now be a little recontextualized. It seems like Google is saying that they will not always be quarterly. Basically, if they aren't ready, they're not gonna launch, right? Like, it's not like a guaranteed quarterly thing, but it's about a quarter. Launching with Android 14, the Pixel 8 and 8 Pro will see updates to Android 15, Android 16, Android 17, 18, 19, and then supposedly even 20 and 21. Again, I'm not super sure about this one. They do promise it. I can put that into, like, the way they phrase it could sound like they could backtrack on it ever so slightly, but even if they offer just Android 15 to 19, I honestly think that's great. And if they then offer another 2 years of comprehensive software security fixes, I think that's good as well. Like, my grandma now has my old XS Max, which my mom had now for 2 years while I had my 13 Pro Max, so she now got my 13 Pro Max. And the iPhone XS still runs the latest software, right? It came out with the A12 chip, so it came out with iOS 12, and now it's iOS 17 time, and it's still getting software updates. It probably will not get iOS 18, but considering that this is a 5-year-old device that has 5 years of software updates, I kind of would believe that like the iPhone XS is a 4 GB of RAM device. I would assume that 6 gigs of RAM devices will get probably around 6 years of full software releases, maybe even 7. And then I think an 8 GB device like the iPhone 15 Pro is like basically guaranteed, in my opinion, to get a full 7 years. So, and then I actually would believe that we get then Apple will probably hit like 10 years for real, like 7 years of software updates, 3 years or so on security updates. That is actually not unrealistic to expect. So, but this, in my opinion, is actually good enough. This could probably also help the phones with like resale value and stuff like that. But there is one thing here, like we talked about so much good stuff that I like in theory, right? All the AI stuff, like even things like, oh, it has a bright screen, that's cool. It has like new sensors and stuff like that. But it's all powered, of course, by the Tensor G3. And the Tensor G3, except for AI, seems to be a little crap. So let us see, like for now we have not gotten like comprehensive like benchmarks. I just checked GSM Arena. I don't know if they have done any testing already on the Pixel. I watched the video that is outlined. Oh, by the way, this is also interesting because the Exynos 2400 is supposedly somewhat similar to it. It seems like this is supposedly the chip we are gonna see in the Galaxy S24 and S24 Plus in Europe, and then the Ultra would be the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. It seems like in a graphics benchmark, it's still falling short of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. But again, it is a pre-release thing. So let's get back to the actual device we wanted to cover, which is the Pixel 8, the Pixel 8 Pro with the Tensor chips. Now, the Tensor G3, as the WCCF Tech puts it, ends up being a bitter disappointment when running in the Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro, with a couple of benchmarks showing that not only does the chipset obtain varying results in both flagships, but is also unable to control its temperatures when stressed. This is important. It shows significantly worse like temperature-based stability than the A17 Pro, like by a wide margin. And I wonder if we'll get like overheating claims on those devices. Like remember the Pixel 3? Like that device was known to overheat. Other Pixels were not always known to be the most stable. So it's not like Google doesn't have a history of not properly testing out their devices in that regard. By the way, I apologize if I move around a little. I don't like the band, not because it's Apple's fault, but I have sensitive skin and I think it's creating like a small rash underneath. So sorry if I have to scratch it a little. I don't want to. Now, this is based on Samsung's advanced 4nm process, and by advanced they mean it hopefully somewhere close to TSMC's 4nm. It seems to not be close. Like, I'll be interested in what the actual power consumption is, but it does not seem to be very impressive given from what the heat buildup seems to be. Now, do they have like comparative results to the iPhone? I actually would like to provide you with an iPhone that comprehensively beats the Tensor G3 in the Pixel 8 and even the 8 Pro, where it's slightly higher clocked. Right, so let's take this iPhone, right? This super high-end iPhone that you have to pay like out the wazoo for, right? It's breathtaking how much you have to invest to get an iPhone that beats it, and that iPhone is the iPhone 14. The iPhone 4. No, wait. I guess the iPhone 13 beats it. But you know which iPhone also beats it? The iPhone 12. The iPhone 12 beats the. I apologize, this was really obnoxious on my part, but it's also true. Like single core results, iPhone 12 and iPhone 12 Pro, both featuring the A14 Bionic, around 2,000 points in Geekbench 6. If we go to the Pixel 8 results, we don't even hit 1,800 points. And this is on the Pixel 8 Pro. On the regular Pixel 8, might I interest you in a strong competitor to the Google's like high mid-range device from 2023, and that device, might I call it the iPhone SE with an underclocked A13 chip. Like I know it's not technically overclocked, but it like rarely runs at actually like high speeds. But yeah, the A13 is probably the best comparable result here, right? It like reaches up to 1711. So if we go to here, that's 1760. That's still way higher than the 1563. And if we go to actual multi-core results, right? So where were we here? We were at 4,200 and 4,400. So where will we be here? Well, that will end us up, pretty much exactly here. In the iPhone 12 again. The iPhone 12 beat it really by a lot in single core, but of course in multi-core it's on an older note at this point. Yeah, this is just embarrassing. Origin, you're saying if you can't play Genshin Impact at 60 FPS highs without my phone feeling like a toaster, go away. By the way, I've tested that out on my iPhone now. Now, it will get really hot if you're using 5G, but it still will stay really bright. But if you're using it on Wi-Fi, I've had like zero issues. Paying $1,000 for a phone that is slower than a phone from a few years ago. What a joke. Yeah, I have to agree. But we're not done here yet, because there's actually one thing, except for the neural engine, that seems to be improved quite nicely. And that is the GPU. Now, the GPU was atrocious in previous years, right? It was like half as powerful as comparable GPUs. Now, I have actually done my homework here, which is I have done the wildlife stress test. Be informed that this is not the wildlife extreme stress test, which is actually more modern, but I'll wait. Which app is wildlife? Is it 3D Mark? Yeah, it's 3D Mark. I guess Mark should remember the 3D Mark, right? So my results, I don't know if you can see that. I've ran the same test, right? And I've actually done that right after charging the phone and charging it on the highest charge, right? I've charged it on the 100-watt charger that I came with my MacBook Pro, and it was super hot still, right? It reached like around 80%, and then I immediately put it out, right? I don't know if you can see that. Basically, the pixel results are 8,200 for the best loop on the Pixel 8, and then it's a very respectable 8,500 on the wildlife stress test. I'll just zoom in here, right? But right, so that's not that far away from my iPhone. My iPhone delivers 10,000 points basically exactly. It delivers 10,012 points. But the lowest loop score on my iPhone was 8,483. Again, I apologize if you guys cannot see that. Here is my graph. Maybe that will help, right? It shows that the performance is actually super stable. And again, my phone was like cooking before I put it onto this test. So it basically had a stability rating of 84%. In comparison, these phones have a stability rating of 52.5% and 58.7% respectively. Now, just to put it into perspective, that means the lowest loop, right? It's like almost nothing in between, right? Of the top results, right? 8600 basically versus 10,000. I mean, sure, that's still a noticeable difference, but it's not that bad, right? But now I'll just do like basically 84, 83, right? That's my lowest result, by the way. And by the way, that was the lowest result on literally the last loop. Every loop before that was still like closer to 9,000. So 84, 83 on my phone divided by 5,029, which is obviously the lowest loop score on the Pixel. And what you'll find here is that my phone is a cool 69% faster. Yeah, it does not show any personal stuff. If you can see that, yeah, it's 68.68.164645% faster. Like this is embarrassing, Pixel. Like, come on, like. Why do that? It's like, if you're wondering about the temperatures, both models definitely got toasty. The Pixel 8 was 45 degrees and the Pixel 8 Pro was at 46 degrees. Now, I don't know what the heat soak actually is. Like, the stability seems to be better on the Pro, but still nothing to like really praise. So I'll keep an eye on basically results from like other sources, but this seems to be like right now not the most promising thing. I don't know how it will impact battery life, because obviously battery life heavily depends on how good that production note is from Samsung. But it definitely is not wowing me by any means. So this is the one thing that I'm somewhat worried about, because I don't know how you deliver 7 years of actual OS updates with a phone that has like lower performance than the iPhone 14, than the iPhone 12 in terms of single core result. Like, single core actually matters a lot, and it's also like a weird chip, right? It has like one high performance core, then 4 middle like performance cores, and then like 4 even lower performance cores for efficiency, but those are not even like based on a really new architecture. Here, look at that. It's like, it's from October 5th. Tensor G3 is not fabricated on Samsung's 4nm LPP Plus process, which may make it inferior even to the upcoming Exynos 2400. Now, obviously, Apple is on 3nm, but I did not compare it to 3nm. I compared it right now to, sure, in graphics I did, right? But in terms of CPU, we compared it against like the first 5nm chip from TSMC and Apple, the A14 in the iPhone, the A14 in the iPhone 12. So past leaks have already spoken up about the CPU configuration of the Tensor G3, right? It has a 9-core CPU and a Mali G715 GPU, so that's actually a pretty good GPU. It's a GPU that in theory for a higher power consumption can beat the A17 Pro. I'm absolutely not hiding that, right? It will need like around 6 watts versus the A17 Pro's 4 watts to actually beat it, but but it can beat it sometimes. Now, I don't know about games that will actually have like mesh shading support, like really well built from the ground up for Metal 3. I don't know about ray tracing. Ray tracing definitely seems to be a lot faster on the A17 Pro, and of course any game that can utilize Metal FX upscaling using the neural engine seems to be in an advantage. But by the way, guys, Google could have built us an alternative to Metal FX. They did not, even though they really focus on neural machine learning stuff. But alas, Apple seems to now care more about gaming, which is hilarious. Well, the CPU cluster is a decent one. I don't actually think so. I think it's entirely overkill to go with a 9-core CPU with 3 different core types on it. Like, I know it's not that dissimilar to what Qualcomm is doing, but in my opinion, it's just not like, you know, it's a little overkill. The manufacturing process is Samsung's older 4nm low power plus instead of low power plus plus. The newer manufacturing process may be dedicated. By the way, this is really important. Like, a lot of people always want to say, well, Samsung is getting really close to catching up with TSMC. Guess what? TSMC already made 3nm. Now, 3nm might not be exactly what we were planning on, but the Tensor G4 next year, right, which will probably be the most advanced chip built on Samsung's nodes, will still be 4nm, right? Like, the Exynos 2400 will that, the Tensor G4 will still not be like, and then the Tensor G5 is supposedly switching to TSMC's 3nm and not even Samsung's 3nm, which would finally might make them a little competitive by using GAAFET rather than FinFET. But yeah, this really seems embarrassing. Unfortunately, the drawback of using Samsung's inferior 4nm LPP process is the lack of power efficiency. Oh, who could have guessed? Really? Like, the chip that gets like super toasty here, right? Like 46 degrees Celsius, 58% like stability versus, wait, what was the exact rating for my iPhone stability? It was 84.7%. So basically 85% versus 59%. So yeah, if you think that the iPhone has like cooling problems, well, might I introduce you to the Pixel 8 Pro. I don't even want to know, by the way, what happens if you run like the Super Actua display at 2400 nits while doing so. So yeah, definitely not the best thing here. What else? Do they have something interesting to say? A Pixel 8 teardown revealed that Google has used copper and graphite film along with thermal grease to help transfer heat, but it has done little to alleviate the overheating issue. The smaller version ends up being 11% slower than the Pixel 8 Pro while touting the same Tensor G3. It's actually interesting. I have not yet seen any of the, like, I don't know, like, is that a vapor chamber heatsink? It just looks like basically a copper plate. No, it does not look like a vapor chamber heatsink to me, nor does it look like they actually are covering a lot of the other components in something similar. It seems a lot like Apple's approach, but with like copper, where Apple uses aluminum. Copper is better than aluminum, and I guess that's really needed given that they have a chip that is far less efficient. So it seems like Apple will definitely keep both the performance crown and likely the battery life crown, because 3nm, even though 3nm might not have been like fully what we expected, but this is this is not the best thing ever in my opinion. And yeah, of course, the Pixel 8 is performing lower than the Pixel 8 Pro. I am actually fine with that. I'm not fine with the actual performance of the Pixel 8, in terms of raw results, but I can be fine with a small difference between the non-pros and the pros. I've actually outlined how next year Apple could do something with the Pixel, not with the Pixel, with the iPhone 16 and 16 Pro, where they could both feature an A18 chip, but then the pros would get like a chip with more GPU cores and stuff like that, and maybe slightly higher clock speeds if they have like a better cooling system. Origin, you're saying that's why the phone is cheaper. Yeah, I think there's a lot here that makes it just cheaper, right? The processor itself, they're using like off-the-shelf parts, and they're basically just doing some neural engine stuff, right? And they're not building like extensive heating. They don't have even like something innovative like what Apple is doing. It's not like how Apple merges aluminum and titanium is like super innovative. It just so happens to be like something that nobody else really does because it's really expensive. But then Pixel is not even, Google is not doing even what like Samsung's and Xiaomi's are doing, which is actually learning from like PC hardware and putting more elaborate cooling systems to actually achieve good results. By the way, this is actually something really fascinating to me, which that does not make much sense to me, which is it says like CPU information ARM v8. I assume this is just coming from the fact that the Tensor G3 is like not yet programmed in, right? We can actually do that here, right? See if benchmark charts, Android benchmark charts. So the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 is the undisputed leader. Do we actually have like a Tensor G2? Yeah, here's the Tensor G2. It's 1400 points in Geekbench 6 versus here we have 1563, so that's about a 11-ish% improvement on the Pixel 8, but then a much nicer improvement on the Pixel 8 Pro. So for a second when those results came out, I almost asked like, wait, aren't those like the numbers from the Tensor G2? Well, no, it seems like this is actually the performance of the Tensor G3. Let me just also compare like multi-core here. Again, multi-core is like really far behind Apple. Apple is now at 7500 basically. I actually ran like Geekbench on my phone. So let me just so we are all up to date. Like my highest Geekbench result was 7356. And my highest single core result was 2957. So in terms of single core, again, nothing is close. And when it comes to multi-core, again, my phone is 40% faster than that. But when it comes to the Tensor G2, my God, how? No, it cannot be that low. Wait, if it's actually like that, no. Wait, where's the Tensor G2? Like, can I click on the Tensor that I've seen here, which was like 1400 something, right? Here, the Tensor G2. Can I get like 30? Wait, what? It's 3390? That cannot be true. Oh my God, 3390. That's like, oh my God, like benchmark charts. iOS benchmark charts, open link in your private tab. You'll actually find when it comes to multi-core results, I apologize, I have to just make sure that my stream works well. Okay. Here, multi-core results. Like, I don't want to fixate on Geekbench, right? But Geekbench is, and I've actually commented about this on Twitter, like 3D Mark, and again, I can actually go to the App Store for this. 3D Mark, right? And if you check out 3D Mark, right? Well, 3D Mark gets updated, right? They fixed some issues. They introduced Solar Ray 3 weeks ago. They did a ton of stuff with like bug fixes a year ago, right? So 3D Mark is decently well supported. Now they introduced 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme 2 years ago, so it does not have the latest metal features built in, but granted, it might also not have the latest Vulkan features built in, so I'll forgive it that, right? But that's 3D Mark. The other major test that a lot of people like to run, and that I absolutely hate, is GFX Bench. And GFX Bench, I really don't know how anybody can still use it. GFX Bench was last updated 1 year ago, right, where they added 4K Aztec ruins. Then they had like network authentication updates. I really recommend you go to like the App Store and check out GFX Bench and see what a worthless benchmark it is at this point. Like Cinebench, I've criticized like Cinebench 23, right? The last major version that finally got like ARM support. And I was like, look, they really did not improve, they did really not optimize it in any meaningful way. But at least it was a new benchmark, and now they released Cinebench 24, which seems to be actually pretty decent in that regard. Still probably favoring Intel and AMD, but decent, right? But GFX Bench got its last major update 5 years ago when they introduced Aztec Ruins and Card Chase, and where they completely utilized the Metal API. Guys, this test is worthless. It needs to be updated to newer Metal versions, to newer Vulkan versions. This is how we got garbage like the Geeker Van video, where they were like, look at this one benchmark we picked out of the entire suite, and stuff like that. And it's like, it's mind-boggling to me. Like, again, the wildlife tests on 3D Mark, they are mainly like long-term stress tests. It's fine, they do their purpose, but when it comes to like GFX Bench, like I really cannot compare them. And then of course there's the question about testing games, and then the problem with games sometimes is that games do not actually have the same settings. It's always between Android and iOS. Like sometimes the highest settings on both systems will not produce the exact same visual result. So again, not trying to defend Apple here, but really trying to attack Pixel here. So this is the reason why we don't focus on as much on GPU tests, because they are much harder on phones these days. I hope if those AAA games that Apple announced, right, like your Resident Evils, your Assassin's Creed, I hope if they actually come on to Android at some point, I hope that they can then serve as like really good tests, and then you can also like, even where iPhone loses, you can also then argue, well, Metal FX will help out, right? Similar to how DLSS helps NVIDIA a lot. So where would that put us, right? We just saw the Pixel 7 Pro has like 3400. 3400 as a multi-core result puts us back into the era of the A13 chip, and not that far off from the A12 chip. That's just insane. That's basically like better than my mom's phone by a little bit. And then when it comes to single core result, the Tensor G2 was like what, 1408, and when we go to like single core results here, 40. Yeah, the that's basically the A12. The A13 is way better than that. And ironically, and this is something like a lot of people like say, oh, why don't you do like more GPU tests? Well, if I did, for example, use Geekbench instead of some of the other stuff for like compute, which compute is the raw GPU power, the A17 Pro delivers 27,000, while on the Android devices, when we look at OpenCL, the highest is around 10,000, and then on Vulkan, that's not a laptop chip, the highest is well, we don't even have a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 tested. So yeah, this is by the why I don't do a ton of like GPU testing here. I do hope that we might get more comprehensive testings, as I said, once we get like more powerful devices, more powerful games to test. But yeah, for now, the Pixel definitely has a lot of ups and downs, and I really wanted to cover all of those things with you because, again, it's not like I think it's automatically like dog trash, but it definitely deserves to be better. I think it deserves better than the Tensor G3. I think similar to how Apple is not putting their own in-house designed modems into their phones before they actually like, you know, are good enough. I think Google's devices deserve the same like love, and they should put in a Snapdragon chip or maybe even like a MediaTek chip until they can design their own chips to a satisfactory level. Or at the very least, they should already transition to TSMC. Because imagine, we might get a phone next year that is like has like basically the exact same architecture, but is then like 5% more efficient, right? Well, it might go like with a Tensor G, with like an X3 main, with an X4 main core versus an X3. But given that it might only switch from Samsung's LPP to LPP Plus, it's very likely that it will not see super huge gains from that improvement, because over the last couple of years, the like the highest end like chips are like ARM cores have actually come with like an increased power consumption, unless the process node got like a lot better. So yeah, I don't really know how to do that, how they will do that. So that's insane to me. But this concludes this speculative part, right? And we might get to something positive that I really want to cover. You guys know how much iPads mean to me. I know also a lot of you guys really care about iPads, more so than like Telosive Text Drew does, for example. And after this topic, I do have to go to sleep, so I'll try wrapping it up relatively quickly. So, apparently we are still getting new iPads this year, supposedly an iPad mini 7, powered by an A15 currently, and then 2 new iPad Air models. So, Apple hasn't released any new iPads for quite some time. The last ones, the M2 iPad Pro and the iPad 10, were introduced in October last year. Or actually I almost forgot it, it's been like this long. Now, 9to5Mac has learned from sources that there are multiple new iPads on track for the coming months, including an iPad mini 7 and 2 new iPad Air models. Analyst Min-Ching Kuo reported in December 2022 that Apple has been working on a new iPad mini expected to be released in 2023 or early 2024. The information was later corroborated by leaker Shrimp Apple Pro, very prolific on Twitter. 9to5Mac sources revealed that Apple still has plans to introduce the iPad mini 7 soon. By the way, this is one of the few times where I actually am covering a website that actually has the scoop. Like in the past, when like 9to5Mac had like some scoop, I read that on like Mac Rumors. That was a little embarrassing. Most likely the new iPad mini will keep the same design, okay, but get a faster chip. Now again, it's currently powered by the A15 chip that came from the iPhone 13. Apple has also been running tests with an updated version of the entry-level iPad codenamed J126B. The 10th gen iPad was introduced last year with a similar design to iPad Air and a USB-C port, but the USB-C port that was actually USB-C 2.0, so this year's iPhone was definitely not first in that way. And it has an A14 Bionic, so it's actually interesting where the iPad mini is like technologically superior. It's also likely that the new entry-level iPad will only get specs upgrade compared to the current model. Now, they do not outline which entry-level iPad we are talking about, because technically Apple has like two. Like, they do have an iPad 9 and an iPad 10. Like, I mean, sure, it makes sense that it will likely be like an iPad 11. But the question is almost like, well, what do you do now with the iPad 9 that is like lightning and the home button and an outdated chip? Do you have anything you want to put into that sub 400, even sub $350 price point? Maybe they will just update the iPad 10th gen. I really hope if they do that they find a solution for the Apple Pencil debacle. I've covered that a lot on this channel, right? That you need this separate cable for it. But overall, yeah, updates are definitely usually welcome, but they are more welcome when the base product is already good, so it's easier to expect something good. While with the 10th gen iPad, I have repeatedly outlined on this channel that there shouldn't have been a 10th gen iPad. Instead, what we should have gotten was an iPad Air that was either cheaper, like around $500, or it should have come with double the base storage at $600, because having a 64 gigabyte device at $600 is absolutely unacceptable. But then the other point is that in order to get more storage, you need to pay $150 to get 256 gigabyte. You cannot even pay like what you previously could do on a lot of Apple devices that had 64 gigabytes, which you could pay $50 to go up to 128. So definitely not the best deal here. The new iPad Air 3 and M3 iPad Pro. The M3 iPad Pro is supposedly coming sometime mid next year, so definitely don't expect that this year. When it comes to the iPad Air, Apple may have more ambitious plans for the mid-range tablet. That's because 95Mac sources have told us that the company has been experimenting with 2 new versions of the iPad Air, so it might not be that both are coming out. Codenamed J507 and J508, which, yeah, that sounds like cellular version and non-cellular version. It does not sound like super separate version. That would obviously be now the iPad Air 6 to replace the iPad Air 5. Oh, and apparently Apple has alternatives called J537 and J538. So maybe that would be like more advanced, right? It's 30 points further, I guess, that are based on the iPad Air. For instance, the only iPad that currently has more than one version is the iPad Pro. I mean, that still could just be like cellular versions and oh, I get it. Like, is the idea that this could be like an 11-inch version and a cellular version for that? But then this is like a 13-inch version and a cellular like counterpart to it. That's actually interesting. Okay. Details are vague, but this suggests that Apple may, like, I thought for a second they meant like they're considering like 2 very different designs and they're like different code names for it, but maybe those are like more size differences rather than like just like very differently spec'd iPad Airs. So that would be interesting, like a 12-inch iPad Air that has like a lot of good spec points, hopefully more base storage, has an M2 chip, and then maybe it's like $200 or so less expensive than the M2 based iPad Pro. Could work well. Like the iPad Pro currently like the 12.9-inch iPad Pro is like $1099, I believe. So if that was like $900 or even like $850, could work really well. Okay, but this suggests Apple may be considering introducing a larger version of the Air or a more expensive model with better specs. Now, I wouldn't even like believe that Apple would introduce them side by side. To me, if this is a different spec version, then this is basically like prototype stuff almost. Some prototypes get like really close to actual production, and then like in the last minute companies can sometimes decide, oh, this one is a little cheaper to produce, and it's not meaningfully worse, so let's just get that one out. Or maybe they're like, okay, the market has actually developed a little worse than we expected, so we need to push out something more exciting, so let's get on with the other one. Especially like if those are not like that meaningfully differently spec'd, then it might not even require that much engineering effort to design both simultaneously. Of course, Apple's plans may change, and the second version of the new iPad Air may never see the light of day. Exactly. We might not see this one, or we might not see this one, or we might see both, or we might see neither. Everything is possible. I think the likeliest thing is that we'll see one of them. Which one depends on which one is actually what in the background. But I don't know if Apple is like really right now gunning for a 12, 13-inch iPad Air before they can release a proper new generation of the iPad Pros, because the iPad Pros are the ones that are supposed to be like the highest profit margin, the most Halo products, right? And Apple also now has a much more rejuvenated Mac business where they can get a lot of people to buy that instead of the iPad Air and iPad Pro. So I don't know how much they really want to dilute the lineup. It's already a little confusing. I know some people say it's like very confusing. I never agreed with that, but it would potentially create problems if they further diversify the lineup. But hey, if it's just size difference, it could still work somewhat. Unsurprisingly, there's also a new gen of iPad Pro with an M3 chip on the way. That would be J717, J718, and then J720 and J721. It's interesting, right? Because here, for the size difference, we are getting like 3 extra points, while here we are getting 30 extra points as we move up from this. Like, look, I know that code names don't have to be super consistent, but if we had followed this handbook from the iPad Pros, then like similar to how we go from J717 to J720 here, we would then go from J507 here to J510 here. Again, just a thought. There's also now more corroboration on the supposedly redesigned Magic Keyboard. First coming from Mark Gurman, who said it would be aluminum instead of plastic and be much more reminiscent of the design of an actual MacBook, and that the trackpad would be larger. The new Magic Keyboard for the iPad is identified as R219. And is equipped with new sensors, including an accelerometer. I guess it might be for some kind of fall detection feature. It is expected to be unveiled alongside the new iPad Pro, and this is what I'm skeptical of, right? Because people bring that up also like in conjunction with the new iPad Airs. But I'm not inclined to believe that this new iPad Air would already be compatible with the new, like, if it really seems like the new Magic Keyboard like leaves behind the old design and might only be compatible with new iPad Pros that might have repositioned smart connectors and stuff like that, I don't know if Apple would really introduce that tech first onto the iPad Air rather than the iPad Pro. Now, we do have some precedent for that, right? Which is iPad 10th gen. I apologize, now it will get blinding. 1, 2, 3, go. Right, I'll choose the English side. Right, if we go by this, right, it has a new keyboard, right? Apple calls this the Magic Keyboard Folio, versus obviously the Magic Keyboard has like the floating design. It offers an extra USB-C port, so it's more like, however, it does not have. It also has like backlight keys, which this one does not have, which is absolutely outrageous. This one actually has a nicely sized trackpad for the size, because again, the iPad with the Magic Keyboard obviously cannot be full size. It cannot cover the entire surface because some areas covered up by your floating iPad on top. Also, the bezels are quite large, I think, for this time. It's time Apple like got away from this ridiculous differentiation. Like, look at this. the 10th gen iPad has a 10.9-inch screen, right? Like, why not give it the full 11 inches from the iPad 11, from the 11-inch iPad Pro? Like, who cares about the 0.1-inch difference? Like, this is just insulting to me. Like, if they want to really make it more attractive, just a slightly larger screen is always nice. Slightly slimmer bezels look always nice. Again, it wouldn't hurt it to finally get double the storage. But at least, hey, it offers color options. Now, those colors are actually like really subdued in real life, unfortunately. But I do like the blue still. If I would get one, there's also like the iPad mini, right? The iPad mini also comes in blue, I believe. No, it comes in purple? Oh, okay. Now I'm less interested in the iPad mini, I guess. But again, the iPad mini also comes with 64 gigabytes, which again, it's not like that bad given that this is a small device, but it's also a device where actually people might want to play some games and stuff. It might be a device that could be really good for kids. It's still not that expensive at $500 for many people. So give it 128 gigabytes Apple's. NAND storage is so cheap these days. It's like 8.3 inches. It's not that bad. For kids, it's plenty often. And then maybe Apple could go from an A15 all the way to an A17. Again, there's no reason, I've outlined that in previous videos, there's no reason to move from A15 to A16. But A17 Pro is obviously pretty expensive. My suggestion here is the A17 Pro has 6 GPU cores. Now the A15 here is non-binned, it has the full cores. But Apple could take the A17 Pro, give it like 2 gigs less RAM to make this 6 gigabytes, and then give it a 5-core GPU, but obviously this would be a better GPU than here, which would be cut down by 1 core from the 6-core GPU on the fully maxed out A17 Pro. I think that would work quite nice. And then with the iPad Airs, I suspect that this year we are just getting an update to M2, maybe getting Wi-Fi 6E and stuff like that. So yeah. Interested in iPads, obviously not quite as like controversial a subject as what we discussed with the Pixels, but it's still something I really wanted to cover. I'm basically at an end here. I don't think there's that much more to cover unless anybody has like any big suggestions or questions in chat. I really wanted to say thank you for anybody who joined, stuff like that. I know it's always difficult to know when I'm actually streaming. I'm not streaming daily. I'm not streaming always at the same time. So I know this can be a little confusing, but I'm really grateful for whenever we actually have pretty productive streams. And beyond that, as I've also said in the beginning of this stream, I will also try to do more like regular YouTube videos, so to speak, because I know the algorithms like it. I know many of you like it, obviously. My highest viewed video ever is like 10,000 views now, and it's a 6-minute video. But then again, my Apple Watch unboxing video is like 5.6K, and that one is obviously way longer than that. It used to be a live stream. Yeah, so thank you guys so much. I really want to encourage you, if you are new here to this channel. I know obviously we are getting a ton of people every day almost, but definitely every week. If you like this content or any kind of content on this channel, please consider subscribing, liking the videos that you actually enjoy, share them out so that more people can enjoy them. And if you want to support me directly, there's the Patreon link in the description of this channel. If you're watching live, please consider giving a super chat or a super sticker in the future. I know we are a growing channel. We'll have plenty of days where there will be no direct support. I'm not disappointed in that. I fully understand. We have grown like crazy in the last 2 weeks. I still need to earn your guys' trust, so you actually feel comfortable with giving me real money. So I'm not putting pressure assure you, I'm really thankful for all your support. Just watching out those videos obviously helps out a lot. It's a really big thing for me for how much this channel has grown, and I love interacting with you. I've said in the beginning of this video, this is why I am sticking with live streams, but it might be that if regular videos become way more relevant, I might structure the live streams to be like, instead of on an irregular basis, like all throughout the week, maybe they will become like twice a week, maybe in the beginning even still 3 times a week, but then I'll have like better times for you to prepare for. Today I actually started out somewhat late in comparison to what I usually do. And I also know we got like a ton of people from India who obviously watch at a different time. And then we have people from the US who watch at another time. So still trying to coordinate all that, appreciating all of you who are helping me grow this channel, growing this community. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you again so much. Please leave me suggestions for what you would like to see me next. Yeah, I'll catch you then. This is Mark Tech, tuning out.